If you look at the dates of Beethoven's life, you'll see that he lived most of his life in the classical period. But he also lived in the Romantic period at the end of his life, and the Romantic period is the next period that we're going to study. He's called a transitional composer, meaning that he was on the edge of the new period, which was the Romantic. Beethoven had a difficult life in many ways. He had a terrible childhood with an alcoholic father who knew that Beethoven was very talented and wanted him to be a child star like Mozart. So much so that he would beat him to practice. Sometimes all night he would keep him up practicing the piano. Later, just like Mozart, Beethoven went to Vienna to begin his musical life as a pianist and a composer. He was very popular and one of the rising stars in Vienna. His early music sounds very much like that of Haydn and Mozart, but he had new ideas, and those ideas moved us into the Romantic period. Beethoven was known for his sonatas, and he wrote them for all instruments, but he's well known for his piano sonatas. This particular sonata is called the Moonlight Sonata. Beethoven didn't name it. It was given that name of Moonlight by a music critic who wrote about Beethoven's music. I want you to listen to this movement because I'm sure you've heard it before. If not, I'm sure you will hear it again. It's one of his most popular. The tragedy of Beethoven's life began when he started losing his hearing in his late 20s. As a musician, he was crushed. He tried all kinds of medical procedures and devices that they had at the time, and he was ready to just give up on music as a career. While he was at a health spa, he wrote his last will and testament, and I'd like you to read it here by clicking on there. Eventually, he decided to continue and went back to Vienna. I'd like you to listen to the sonata by Beethoven. It's very sad. It's called the Pathetique, and I think it'll kind of give you an idea of what his life was like as he was losing his hearing. Beethoven was known for his symphonies. He only wrote 9 of them, but they are probably 9 of the most well-known symphonies in the world. But they were all different. His 5th symphony is his most well-known. It follows the sonata allegro form of the classical period because he was living in that period, but he certainly doesn't sound like Haydn and Mozart at this point. We're going to study this in class, but I want you to listen to it now. In all, he wrote, again, 9 symphonies, and some of them have names, just like the sonatas. He didn't name them. They were named by other people. And some of these are quite famous. The Eroica was one that he wrote, and dedicated to Napoleon. At that time, everyone thought that Napoleon was a good guy, and as Beethoven saw that he turned out to not be so good, he actually took the dedication away from the Eroica. But it was pretty much, if you listen to it, it's kind of a war symphony. He wrote a pastoral symphony, number 6, and at that time in Vienna, it wasn't the big sprawling city it is today, and around the edges of the city there were lots of farms and places to walk, and Beethoven would go out, and every day he would walk through the woods outside of Vienna, and he's actually taking you on a walk, and it's called program music, which is very much romantic music, not classical, and he takes you on a walk and wants you to hear what he's seeing. And this is a new style that we'll see in the Romantic period. Again, that's why he's a transitional composer. The last symphony, I think, is his most important, and it's called the Chorale. This was the last one he wrote in the last 2 years of his life, but he had started writing it as a young man. He found a poem when he was just a young man in Vienna, and he tried for years to put this poem to to music. And finally, at the end of his life, he did that. And what he did that was so different was he added voices. We all know that symphonies are instrumental pieces, but now he adds one more layer to the music, and that is this chorale. So do listen to it, and we'll talk about it more in class.